Hi, I'm Stacy. I'm GirlsInTheStacks.com, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Judson Roberts, author of, the series, the Stronbow Saga, the Viking Warrior, which is book 1, and book 2 is Dragons from the Sea, and book 3 is Road to Vengeance. And we are here at the Teen Book Convention, but we're out here outside in the quiet. It's very crowded and noisy in there. Anyway, I loved the Stronbow Saga. I can't even get over. I think everybody needs to read the Stronbow Saga.
So do I.
And so does Judson. He agrees. Can you you come from a very different background from writers. You were an investigator.
Well, I was a police officer, and I went into the Army JAG Corps, and I was a defense attorney in the Army for a while, and then I was a naval intelligence officer, and then I was an organized crime prosecutor for quite a number of years after that. And I was a private investigator here for a little while in Houston.
So how did private investigator, being in, all that, and come to writing about Vikings? How did that come about?
Well, they're totally unrelated.
They are. They are unrelated. Please fit the pieces together.
I actually, when I was in Arizona, where I was an organized crime prosecutor, I was working for. I worked for 2 different agencies out there. The first one was the Arizona Attorney General's office, and it was a wonderful place to work, a wonderful job. And unfortunately, the Attorney General I worked for retired, and somebody else got elected, and I was on the hit list. So I then moved to the local district attorney's office, and about 2 years later, I was running a big undercover case, and I had a wiretap going, and we were getting ready to raid a lawyer's office because we heard on the wiretap that he had some documents in his safe that we wanted to seize. And the district attorney, when he found out about that, just went ballistic and turned off the wiretap, and so we're closing this case immediately. Obviously, he didn't want whatever was in that safe to come to light. So I resigned that day and decided I was going to take a break from law and law enforcement for a while, so I thought I'd try writing a book. And I loved it. I didn't sell that book. I didn't sell the next book, but I was hooked on the idea. So that's how I segued from one career into the other.
That is good. That's a really good story.
Well, thanks.
I mean, it's like, I'm just going to pick up writing. I mean...
Well, I'd been feeling for a while that, a lot of the books that I read, I thought, this really isn't that good, and it's published. Surely I can write something at least that good.
We think that too a lot.
We're like, we could totally do that.
Okay, so you've always had a fascination with Vikings?
I had a fascination with them as a child, and then when I came up with the idea from hearing another author, Bernard Cornwell, speak, came up with the idea of maybe I should try writing historical fiction, and I started thinking, well, what time period and people would I be interested in? I thought, why not the Vikings? They were fascinating to me as a child. And then when I started researching them, I found out they were much more fascinating than I realized. I mean, they had a culture that was, to me, it reminds me of the Homeric Greeks. They had this high regard for honor. They had this elaborate oral literature. And piracy was a big part of their life, but it was an honorable profession.
Right. And we'll talk about that. But first I want to talk a little bit about Halfdan and how you created that character. Like, what did you draw on, like, good and bad?
Well, one of the problems I had was there's certainly aspects of the Viking culture that today we would find very unattractive.
Right.
And so I kind of needed my protagonist to be someone who was a little bit of an outsider in his own culture. Because otherwise he would do things like steal people and sell them into slavery and not think anything of it. So I needed to have a character who would find aspects of his own culture unattractive, and that's how I came up with the idea of him originally being a slave and then being free.
It's a very interesting story because I read all 3 of the books, and he does have that struggle even with, the guy he swore oath to. What was his name? Hestine. Questioning whether what he's doing was right or wrong. And I just loved that about Halfdan, and I think I fell in love with the character. And then halfway through this book, you introduce Genevieve. Is that how you say it, Genevieve?
Yes.
Was that your intentions all along, was to bring a girl into the mix of the story, or was that...
Well, I think that romance is always makes a story more interesting.
Right. So, but I liked the first one, and there was no romance in the first one. It's very action-adventure. Please tell everybody about book 4 and 5.
All right. I planned for the series to be 5 books in all. I had some problems with my publisher. When they originally bought 3 books and had an option to publish the rest of the series, and so before the 3rd book came out, I actually gave them a fairly detailed outline for the remaining 2 books of the series. and they just sat on the option for over 2 years. They were disappointed in the sales of the series, in large part, I think, because they did nothing to make anyone aware of the books. My agent said that she had never seen a hardback series get launched, a new hardback series get launched by a major publisher and not get a single review, and it didn't get any reviews. Apparently, they forgot to send review copies out. The way a big publisher works is they think the first book is indicative of how a series is going to do. So that book kind of just totally flew under the radar, and it's been a struggle ever since. And so they finally decided they aren't going to continue the series. So now, I mean, they did release the option to me at the end of last year, and so now I'm free to publish the books through another venue. But in the meantime, I started writing another novel, so I've got to finish it first.
Okay. Well, I'm here to say that their loss will be another publisher's gain, because this is a really great series. I think reluctant readers, especially for Viking Warrior, because it's just a lot of action for males, really. And it's just the good moral values, too, and you think Vikings, and that's contradictory. But Halfdan, he has values, and I really appreciate that about his character. And it's a good series, and everybody should definitely pick up a copy. You can go to his website, StronbowSaga.com, and it will have links to where you can buy the book. You can buy them on Amazon. I bought mine from Amazon. Okay.
And if I could interject something, one thing that's been really surprising to me is the way different people have reacted to the books, that more so than I really anticipated. I get about anywhere from 2 to 5 emails a week still from readers saying they really like the book, and when's the next one coming out. But like last week, I got one from a young teenager who's a Maori in New Zealand, and he said he discovered the books and loved them. And the week before, I got it from a 41-year-old woman in Australia. Last year it was from a Australian Army major stationed in Afghanistan, who said this was one of his favorite series of all times, and he carries them with him when he travels. And it was like, there's something in them that touches people differently, and I really didn't anticipate that.
I think it's a gem that's hidden amongst a lot of vampire and werewolf novels. Not that we don't like them, but this does not have that paranormal aspect, but it has, there's just something about these books that make them, you just have to read them. They're really good. They're really good. And so now comes, the fun part of our, because now we're going to learn all about your little dirty secrets now. Well, not dirty secrets, but you know what I mean. Okay, salty or sweet?
Salty.
Okay. Cook at home, take out, or dinner out?
Oh, cook at home. I love to cook.
Pop, soda, or Coke? What do you say? You're from Houston, so...
Well, I don't drink any of them, so I don't really talk about them.
You don't really say? Okay.
No, I say wine.
You say wine? Okay, thesaurus or
like
dictionary?
you.
Dictionary.
Okay. Country, hip-hop, rock, or classic?
Celtic.
Celtic. Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and I already know what you're going to say.
Lord of the Rings.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Well, I read fiction for pleasure and nonfiction when I'm researching.
Okay. Texting, email, or talking on the phone?
Well, first of all, I've never texted. I've yet to send a text, so that's definitely not one. I love email.
I do too.
It's very convenient.
They can answer if they want, or they don't have to answer if they don't want to.
Right.
I didn't get that email. What are you talking about? Truth or dare?
I'm not sure what that question means.
If someone asked you truth or dare, would you take a truth or would you take a dare?
I always go with the truth.
Okay, there you go. I would probably do the truth too.
You are a
Werewolf or
truth.
vampire?
Oh, werewolf. I'm sick of vampires.
There you go. And what are you currently reading? What's in your stack right now?
I'm reading a book by Andrea Camilleri. It's a translated mystery set in Sicily, and he just has a really funny sense of humor. And there's a wonderful atmosphere of the island of Sicily. Just strange little books. You can get them in the library, but so that's what I'm currently reading.
Okay.
Very entertaining. I love reading mystery novels that authors in other countries have written. Right before that, I read one that was written by a Norwegian author. And
Was it the dragon tattoo?
no, but I want to read that. That sounds
I should
fascinating.
have brought my books to give you. I read them all. And I got the last one. I had to order it from UK because I just needed to read it so fast. So anyway,
have you seen the movie thing?
I need to get on Netflix to order the movie to watch it, but I just haven't.
Yeah, it's not out on Netflix yet.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Well, then
No, it's in Angelica. Remember we talked about
it's
that.
in the theater
okay.
here in Houston.
Okay. So anyway, there you have it. Judson Roberts,
Yay!
his book, The Stronbow Saga. You really must read it. Find it, read it, and then we'll get that forth
And then comment.
published. And comment. And go to StrongbowSaga.com and you can find out all sorts of information about the Vikings and the Viking time. Anyway, with that, we'll see you in the stacks. Bye.
Thanks a lot.